incredible in terms of its sheer speed, acceleration, stealth, sensors and maneuverability. It actually compensates for tactical errors. It makes up for a lot of shortcomings in the pilot side. You can have a really bad day and airplane will still do phenomenally well, said one senior F-22 pilot who goes by the call sign Crash. Just because you win the fight, doesn't mean you did well. Just because you lost, doesn't mean you screwed up. We build scenarios to track that, so there are times when guys will die in training when they did everything right, and there is other times dudes are screwing up left and right and they're completely successful. But in this airplane it is much easier to survive. In order to train pilots for the exercise, the first fighter wing uses a combination of T-38 trainers and other F-22s to act as radar replicating advanced flanker-level threats. Meanwhile, the F-22's onboard computers and data links replicate enemy surface-to-air threats such as the S-300V4 and S-400. During one sortie, the Raptor flew against a combination of advanced flankers and a very robust surface threat. A young first fighter wing F-22 weapon officer by the call sign of Bullet told me. Bullet is a graduate of the Air Force's Elite Weapons School, was one of the lead planners for the exercise. Typically, we'll train against the biggest and baddest threats because we want to train against the newest threat on the block, Bullet told me. What's the worst case scenario so that we can employ how we would, because when we train to that high level and into actual combat and it's not at that high level, we're not as task saturated. It's a lot easier for us to manage, because the jet is so capable and the pilots are the elite of the elite. The Red Air has to effectively overwhelm the Raptors with sheer numbers. Indeed, Crash described one scenario where 4 F-22s took on 10 4th-gen enemy aircraft similar to a Su-35 simultaneously, in which regenerate or come back to life. A little bit more than your typical 4th gen, Crash said. We're not training against things that are not operational yet. We're fighting against the most advanced operational threats we can. Typically, the blue F-22s will slaughter the enemy from long range. Indeed, as Fessler notes, if an enemy aircraft has survived to enter the merger visual range combat and finds a Raptor, something has gone terribly wrong. That usually leads to an intensive debrief to understand what went wrong. Indeed, all of the pilots I spoke to unanimously told me that the debrief is the most important part of a training sortie. Nonetheless, F-22 pilots train extensively for a visual range fight. We usually train full up versus full up, Crash said. We assume that a Western-trained F-22 is going to be the most challenging threat we're going to go against, a big upgrade, and something needed. One recent addition to the Raptors at Langley is the new Block 3.2A Update 5 software. At long last, the new upgrade adds the Raytheon AIM-9X Sidewinder high off-bar sight missile, something long coveted by the F-22 community. The addition of the AIM-9X is a huge improvement for the Raptor, all of the pilots at First Fighter Wing that I spoke to told me. The addition of the new weapon greatly increases the F-22's already formidable lethality. That's even though Upgrade 5 is an interim capability. The AIM-9X and the Raytheon AIM-120D AMRAAM missiles will be fully integrated onto the Raptor with the Increment 3.2B upgrade, which has yet to be fielded. The one thing that the F-22 is still lacking is a helmet-mounted cueing system, HMCS, that would be used to exploit the outer edges of the AIM-9X's capabilities. It's a feature that is common on most U.S. fighter aircraft and most foreign ones. The lack of such a system would normally place the Raptor at a severe disadvantage in a dogfight if the aircraft didn't perform as well as it does. The Air Force is still planning on adding such a helmet-mounted cueing system to the F-22, but pilots at the First Fighter Wing say that it is not an absolute necessity. The Raptor can usually dominate a fight even without such a system. Indeed, as Fessler noted, even without the AIM-9X or HMCS, F-22 pilots often close into gun range and ambush other jets in visual range. I can sneak up on a guy, Fessler said. In the F-22, I convert on guys, and they never even see you there. You roll up right behind them and go, why waste a missile when you have a gun? Ultimately, as the U.S. Air Force's only dedicated fifth-generation air superiority fighter in an increasingly hostile world where the threat grows more challenging every day, it is in the service's best interest to ensure the Raptor remains as capable as possible. Right now, the Air Force is slated to equip the F-22 with a helmet-mounted sight by 2020, but similar efforts have fallen prey to budget cut in the past. The helmet would be awesome to have, but it's not a game changer for us, Crash said. but a helmet-mounted sight would help us a lot.